Hi, this video is about my grandmother. So now that we have a lot of ways to record stories, I realized after some time, uh, after my grandmother had passed away, and later on, as I was working and also in communications roles, I used to think, if I had these things, I would have been documenting the stories I had with my grandmother. And I would have recorded her so I could have kept it. So, yeah, I think I would encourage young people to do that. So, with your phones, if you're fortunate and blessed to have a grandparent around, or even with your parents. Sometimes you sit down with them and you ask them to tell you stories about when they were growing up, stories they remember, and record it on your phone and where store it on the cloud or keep it. You won't regret it when you get older. But that's something you could do. And when I remember her, I remember things like she only left the house once a week on Sundays to go to church, and then she'd walk from her daughter's house to the church. She'd go to church, and then she'd go to her sister's house for lunch and spend the rest of the day before we picked her up again in the evening. And then she went to town once a month to collect a pension. It was the military pension, her husband's pension that she was allowed. And every now and then she'd go to another sister's house for a haircut or to cut her sister's hair. But when I was much younger, she used to go to Batucola to visit her nieces there. And yeah, that was somewhere she used to go. But as she got older, she rarely left the house, and we did everything for her. We did the shopping, and there was no need for her. She'd tell us what she needed, and we'd go and get it. But she was also working for some time. She was working after her husband died. She was only actually married for 3 years, and then her husband died. And the story that she told was that he was the one who started her smoking cigarettes. At that time, it was popular culture. It was new. It was fashionable. And so after he died, she continued to smoke. That was her only what weakness. But yeah, she never drank a drop of alcohol her whole life. She had never ever tasted kava, yagona, her whole entire life. And pretty much disciplined. She didn't exercise, as in exercise as we know it, but she kept busy, herself busy, both mentally and physically. And I was interested in these things because I'm interested in neurology. And she lived to 89, but she didn't show any outward signs of, say, dementia or Alzheimer's symptoms. And I always wondered why. But what her usual routines was that she keeps herself busy. So she's always doing something, but not rushedly, not quickly. Does things just in gentle paces. And then she read the Bible every day. So when she would read it, she read it and she'd be sitting there contemplating on it. I think she'd be trying to like make sense of what she just read. but she never sort of tried to shove it down our throats or never really forced me to read the Bible. But when I was growing up, when I was very little, it was a routine where she'd call me in the afternoon for the afternoon prayers and just pray, say a Bible verse, and have your afternoon nap. So I remember that. I will still remember that. Must have been 3, 4 years old. But um, she did crochet, so it's like knitting. You don't see it very much now. But the department stores before, there were two main ones. Maurice Hedstrom's used to sell crochet cotton in different colors and with the crochet sticks, like knitting, um, yeah, needles, crochet needles. And so she did that. That was one of her hobbies, and it's very intricate, and she's doing it without. She should be able to think up of a pattern, or maybe see a picture of it, and then she would just crochet it. So it's intricate work, and it involves maths. It involves mathematical. You're counting the little squares as you're making the filling in. You fill in the squares to start sort of shading it in as you would in a painting. And then when it's complete, it's either an angel, a cross, or flowers. Those were the usual patterns that she crocheted. That was what she did when she sat down from cooking, or would sit down and be crocheting most evenings until she got that. Um, so that's maths. She's doing maths naturally. She's counting backwards, she's counting in patterns, she's designing, um, and she keeps herself busy cooking recipes, she's baking, and she made oil. That was one of the things she was good at too. So she kept the block of sandalwood under her bed with this big grater and this big silver basin. That was something she liked to make oil. She liked having like her own oil, and she went to church, of course, once a week, and she had this good social relationships because her family, there were three of them that were born to uh, Jesse, Marriott, and Stella Pickering. But then her mother died. She was raised by her grandmother, but her father remarried and went on to have other children. So altogether, the family, her siblings, there were 12 of them. That time when people had many children, that time that was big. Families were bigger in the olden days, and so she had those good social relationships, and she worked for a while because her husband died just after 3 years of marriage. She worked as a canteen lady at the Tamagua Medical School. So she lived up. They used to live in town, around the Turak area and Railway Street. And that time, so my father, when he was little, he made friends with people like Wada Nasi, whose dad owned a laundry in Turak. So she was a widow, like very early. My father was only 3 when his dad died. She was only married for 3 years. So when she worked as a canteen lady. And a lot of actual nurses. One of my good friends, Arthur Sobey, his mom was a nurse. She remembers my grandmother well in the canteen. But I think those kind of things kept her healthy, just a variety, doing different things, having that flexibility, not so sedentary because she's still moving around, doing things to cook, to make oil, to walk once a week. And once a month, she went into town. So that was a long walk. She would walk from the government buildings and down to stop over at certain places, go to the old Morris Headstrom's and eat roast chicken and chips and ice cream and jelly. That's once a month they out to town. But she walked. That's quite a walk. It's like about 1.5 2 kilometers walk. So she was still walking up the hill where we lived, even when she was about 81. So I was just thinking about those kind of things and how now we can document stories. And the reason why it's good to do it is because what we know is shaped intergenerationally and how we are. When we understand our parents and grandparents, we understand ourselves as well. And so it's a good way to get things around your head. And sometimes we hear stories, people's like, I just don't know why my mother did this, I just can't understand. I've heard stories like that over the years. I don't know why she does this. But if you sit down to listen, ask them when they tell stories to you, and if you document it and you listen to understand and you try and understand, you will get to know yourself better too, and why you are the way you are without getting frustrated. And also, often we get accused of, oh, yeah, she's just like her father, just like her mother. Those kinds of accusations. And sometimes you say, oh, yeah, I'm like my father, I'm good at singing. And so that's true too. And but ultimately, we form our own identities. Like, it's important to define yourself for who you are, so people are not trying to tell you who you are. So it's important for you to know who you are and start with just knowing what you like. I like dancing, I like writing, this is what I enjoy doing. Or I like working as a nurse, that's me. And being clear about that, because sometimes we're really pressured to be a certain way, even to be Fijian or not being Fijian enough. And that's just sort of, it's a paradigm that's a little bit flawed, because who can say you're not Fijian enough, or you're not Australian enough, or and these things, it occurs now because we're living in different times. And we're, especially for us who have close links to our um, the indigenous cultures. And then when you're sort of different, you'll go through those sort of a pull a pull in different directions. And people in the diaspora, like communities, I've heard the story. I sat in one of their online meetings, and this was one of the issues where they say, oh, we don't speak Fijian, but we identify as Fijian, but our parents didn't teach us Fijian. And then and there were reasons for that. Some of them, when their parents, like say, went to England, they wanted their children to fit in. So they'll be speaking to their children in English because they want their children to fit in with the other children and learn at school. So those were some of the realities that people face, and even us in Fiji, like even with having Indians in Fiji and this being politically correct. Is it Indo-Fijians or is it Indian? Do we say Hindu or Muslim? And all these things. And for me personally, I just think if you're born in Fiji, you identify as Fijian, and that's it. That makes you Fijian. It doesn't, all those other arguments, and yeah, it depends on who you're talking with. So, but otherwise, I sometimes, I know that I'm fortunate that when I was little, my grandmother lived with us. And so I can listen to her stories on a daily basis, like for years, 20 years, 20, more than 20 years. So knowing who she is and her stories and knowing my parents and who they are, it also makes me understand myself better. And so even if someone accuses you of, oh, no, you're this, you can say, no, I'm this. And it becomes an important part of identifying who you are. Identifying who you are, yeah, is in relation to, it shapes us. We're shaped by our parents, we're shaped by our grandparents, we are shaped by what they were shaped by, but then you need to define yourself. That's how um, I know to be true for me, and that's the knowledge we have now more on self awareness. It helps you to keep your feet on the ground, um, and to be more, yeah, not take maybe insults personally, because there's a lot of things like that always happen. Oh, she's not Fijian enough. And I said, well, there's Indian people, there's the people in Fiji, but European who don't speak Fijian at all, the Itoke language. Does that mean they're not Fijian? So those kind of things. So that's why, yeah, I feel as if listening to my growing up with my grandmother, and also I also had a lot of time to listen to my parents' stories. Whether I should have or not, I don't know, but that's who I can't erase that part of my life, and it doesn't take away who I am as a person. But I think I'm a better person for it, because when I sort of respect them and I understand even why maybe they are the way they are, it makes me understand me better too. And I think it's where that saying comes from, get back to your roots. It doesn't necessarily mean like, I'm going to say something, but I know it doesn't mean that I need to trace my roots back to, I don't know, maybe I came from Java or Indonesia. But to me, tracing your roots, it means that you, at least that's that much you can do. Know who your parents were, know who your grandparents were, and maybe just the generation that they know, and then you try to understand that, to understand yourself. All right, hope you like my video and watch my next video.